All right, guys. Welcome back. All right, so let's go ahead and get started on our paint work. Now, the first thing we're going to do is just go over the Roto Paint Node demo. So, if we hit P on the keyboard, that's what creates our Roto Paint. I'm going to go ahead and load this in the viewer. Now, it's very similar to the Roto Node, but the most obvious difference is its initial output. It outputs into our color, right? Because if we're doing paint, we're probably painting in the color channels. Not always, but usually we are. So it defaults to our RGBA. Now, you're going to see that we have these background inputs, very similar to a roto node. We'll have a mask input. Now, let me plug something into this background input. As soon as I plug a black constant, in this case, into the background input, you're going to notice you have this other input pop up called background input 1. And I'll show you how we can use these different background inputs. So if I take color bars, we'll just plug that into background input 1. All right. Now you'll notice we have background input 2. Another one popped up. Let's just plug something else into that. We'll just do checkerboards into that. And you'll notice, guess what? Another one popped up, background input 3, right? And we could keep going with this. I think 3 or 4 is the most they give you. I've never really needed to use any more than 2. All right, but you can have multiple background inputs. Again, I'll show you what that's for here in just a moment. Now, again, it's very similar to the roto node, so a lot of these tools up here at the top are going to be very similar, right? So these are straight from the roto node, so you guys should be familiar with these. But we've got these additional tools down here, right? We've got our different types of brushes. So let's just start with the brush here. So I'm going to click and hold and create a brush, all right? And we can start to paint. Brush stroke, right? I'm going to paint white. It's going to be an over operation. Its opacity is set and its size is set. Now you can interactively control the size by holding down shift and left clicking and dragging. So see how I'm controlling the size of my brush here? The hardness will be its fall off. You can't interactively control that, but you can just enter it in here. Then we have build up and single frame, right? By default, it's on a single frame. So if I do a brush stroke here, right? So there's my first brush stroke. Go to the next frame, you see it disappears, right? So I could very quickly just, I don't know, do something like this, right? And you get like a real quick kind of animation. Okay. If you wanted to do something like that, okay? So just keep that in mind. Your brush strokes are on single frame. You can see every time I released and I click, I'm creating a new brush stroke in the Roto Paint Nodes directory. All right, so keep that in mind. Each brush stroke has its own properties after the fact. So I could go to this brush stroke and say, okay, let's go to its stroke. Maybe I want to change the size of this one. I could change the size of it, right, after the fact. Maybe I don't want the hardness to be so hard or so soft. You can change that after the fact, okay? So these aren't rasterized. These are still kind of vector in that sense, where you have the ability to change them after the fact. All right. So if you want to paint on all frames, again, you could go to all, right? Or you could pick a frame range similar to your lifetime. So now it's on all frames. So if you just play through it, all right, you have the brush stroke on all frames. So that being said, you paint. I don't know why it's giving me that weird error. All right. So it defaults to its color, which is white, but you can actually go into the stroke tab and say, let's source one of those background inputs, right? So background input 1, that's my color bars. So now you can see what it's doing. It's like revealing, in a sense, that background input. In fact, we actually have a particular type of brush called the reveal brush that does this. So if I go down here and go to the reveal brush, I can say, let's reveal background input 1. So now whenever I paint, it's like I'm painting or revealing those color bars, okay? So it's common to say put your original plate and background, just the BG, and then you would create a clean plate, say in Photoshop, and plug that into background input 1. And then whenever you would need to paint something out, you would just paint or reveal your clean plate where you needed it, okay? That's a common workflow you could do. Yeah, what's up?
So you said that you can work also on the alpha channel. Yeah?
Yes, you can if you want.
So, for example, with the Jedi, which those like a small batches that you can find at the end, you just can paint.
Yep, and that's what you would do. It's all right. I didn't show you guys that, so you didn't know to do that.
The boom operator, which is one of the settings, we're making the sky.
Yep.
Like,
But you don't even. I'll show you.
making the sky where the boom operator is, and then just running a reveal on all the scenes.
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah.
That's basically what you're doing in these types of shots. All right. Okay. So we have a clone tool, which I'll get to in a minute. I'll show you when we're doing the demos how the clone works. You also have what are blurs, sharpens, and smears. Be careful with these, especially the smear. If I start smearing stuff, it can start to bog down your system. Again, you would never do something like this. This is for smearing like a pimple or something on someone's face that you got to get rid of, right? You could kind of smear that out or something like that. A blemish or some type of inconsistency. These are supposed to be used very subtly and not even that often. Same with the blur or a sharpen. Yeah, right. So you have a dodge and a burn. A dodge is going to brighten. So if I paint with a dodge, so it kind of brightens it. Again, these would be subtle things you would do if you needed to brighten an area. A burn is going to burn. So it's literally going to darken and almost black out, in this case, your color. Of course, these can have their own opacities, right? So again, you can control all this stuff after the fact.
Why is the burn so much more powerful than the dodge?
Because it's burning it. I guess it's based off of its strength is just at 100. So you could turn down the strength or the opacity of it so it isn't so drastic.
It just seemed really weird that the dodge
Just kind of
made it slightly brighter, and the burn
just completely darked it out. It was just in that case. The burn usually doesn't darken that much. It's just, I think, because I had a black constant as a background. So anyway, so those are basically the tools we can use. We do have an eraser. So let me show you the eraser here. So let's say I do a few brush strokes. I'll do one here. I'll do another one. And then I'll do 3. And now I'm going to set each one of these to something different. So this brush stroke will be my background input 1. This brush stroke will be my background input 2. There we go. And the rest one's just white. So here's how the eraser works, right? If I were to create the eraser, it's its own stroke. So I can just erase like this, right? But it's all contingent on where it's placed here in the hierarchy, right? This is probably the only area in Nuke where you'll see a layering hierarchy similar to After Effects or Photoshop. All right, so if I were to place this eraser in between these two, now you'll notice, see, it's not erasing the one that's above it. It's only erasing the ones that are beneath it. Again, it's that layering type of system that kind of comes from Photoshop or After Effects. Again, that's probably the only place in Nuke that you see a layering kind of hierarchy like this. All right, so that's how the eraser can work. So let's go ahead and get into our first demo. This is going to be the first project that you guys do. And this is from a movie called Gallow Walker. Now you'll notice it gets to the end of the clip and you see how it just holds on the last frame. All right, one thing that you're going to want to do in your viewer is set your viewer time range to be the input of the clip. So right here where it says global, if you set this to input, it's going to default to the frame range of your read node's input. So now if I play through it, it plays. So that being said, what do you guys think he's saying, by the way? You guys guess. What is he saying? Look at his mouth. What's he saying?
What now?
This is what they call, speaking of audio, I'll just go off on a tangent here. This is what they call ADR, or automated dialogue replacement. If you guys aren't aware, pretty much everything you hear has been re-recorded, right? Stuff on a set sounds bad, right? You can hear fans and winds, you can hear the stomping on the fake sets. So they have to re-record all the dialogue, and the actors are obligated in their contracts to have to come back 6 months later and re-record all the dialogue. It's called ADR. So I've just done this enough to I can kind of look at the phonemes and see how their mouths are moving, and I can give a pretty good guess on what he's saying. So in this case, he's saying, "We die. We die. We die." And that's what they do. It's the looping. They go through each line and loop it until the actor gets the performance right and gets the timing right.
That's why some movies, when they're saying stuff,
Some actors can't do it.
it looks weird.
Yeah, it looks kind of weird, and sometimes it's annoying when you're sitting there for 8, 10 hours trying to get this actor to get this one line right. Anyway, that's a whole separate story. So this is going to be our first project that we're going to work on. And what we're going to do is remove these safety wires. Like I said, it's common to do this type of work. All right, now we're going to kind of make this a little simple because I really just want you guys to get used to using the Roto Paint node for this particular shot. So we're going to do this a couple different ways. Again, the first thing we always do is we kind of assess the footage and kind of break it down on how we want to start our work. So we've got this area off to the left, and then we've got this area off to the right. Now, this area off to the left is going to be pretty easy, and most of the area off to the right. But there are going to be certain areas that we're going to need to pay attention to. Most notably, his hand. See how his hand passes in front of the wire? So that's going to be hand frame by frame painting, right? Where we're doing frame by frame painting to paint out that wire behind his hand. Also, areas like this, see where he's bringing it up? This is going to require a frame by frame cloning or painting out. Once we get to about this point, then we can use a different technique. All right. So let's go ahead and start off to the left here. All right. I'm going to create my Roto Paint node by hitting P on the keyboard. And the first thing I'm going to do is create what's called a 3-point shape. And typically a 3-point shape will be enough to give you the control to do these wire rig removals. Now you guys might think, wait a minute, I've looked here and I've seen this thing. What is this? All right, we're not going to touch this thing. All right. Okay, so if you guys have seen this, right, we're going to do this the basic way. Oh, hello. It's next door telling me to shut up. You're bothering us. So, what are you doing?
I would pick up with like
You're messing up my flow. All right, so these are very specific nodes to kind of automate this process, but we're going to do this the manual way because you're not always going to have the liberty to use these nodes, right? So we want to use the nodes that we know, whatever type of pipeline you guys get into, you can use. So again, I'm going to create a 3-point shape. I'm going to do it just like this. I'm going to create a point at the top, a point in the middle, and a point at the bottom. That's what a 3-point shape looks like. And like I said, this will give us the most amount of control over getting this wire. So right now, all I want to do is make sure that the safety wire is staying within this shape. It defaults, again, to color, but let's go ahead and source the background. So you guys remember when I did the birds, right? Remember I cloned the bird? Same type of idea. It looks like I've made the shape off, I've turned it off, or I've made it transparent, but in reality, we're seeing a completely different image inside this shape. It just so happens to be sourcing the same image as the background. So first thing you want to do, set some keys, make sure that this wire is staying within this shape. Let's do something like this. Again, shift right arrow key. We'll just skip ahead a little bit and go a little bit further. If I don't get this part, I'll clean it up with another shape. So I'm not really too concerned about getting that right now. Oh, it's getting really close here. You just want to keep tweaking it, keep getting it. Right. And I need a hard cutoff on this at around noon, so I can keep staying on track. Okay, so something like this. There we go. So let's just scrub through it, and you just want to make sure that it stays inside the shape the entire time. So just check it. Oh, got really close there, so I might just want to pull this out just a little bit to make sure I'm getting it. Now, you guys notice you're not seeing the keys on the timeline? Even though I'm setting keys on the shape, there's no keys on the timeline. Anyone know why? No. You're close. Well, you're not really close, but any ideas? Why am I not seeing the keys? What's that? There you go. I'm on the wrong tab. As soon as I go to the Roto Paint tab, see all my keys? Just keep that in mind. If you don't see your keys, make sure you're on the Roto Paint tab. All right, so now we've got our keyframing done. So let's do our cloning. If you'll notice, each shape has a clone, right? Just like how I did with the birds. So right now, it puts the pivot right in the center of the image. So if I were to just grab this and move this up here, watch what happens. Okay? But I don't want to do it like that. I want to move my pivot to an area that I want to clone. How do I move my pivot? Command, right? So let's hold down Command. Let's drag it to somewhere over here in the sky. That's what I want to clone. All right. So now I let go of Command, let go of the pivot, and then I just move it into position. Shunk. There we go.
How was it that you cloned?
Well, I just went to the clone tab, right? Remember, each shape, like I said, it's a separate image that you're seeing, and I'm just offsetting what you're seeing in that shape.
Should I hold command or
No. Once you initially, the command is just to move your pivot or anchor point into the area you want to clone. So once you got it where you want, then you let go of command and then move it into position. Okay?
How big is that clone? Like the size of that shape? Like it's the same.
Yeah, it would be the size of the shape, right? That's what you're seeing. So inside this shape, you're seeing this area of the image over here that I've just moved over. All right. Again, this is just one technique. You're going to see there's multiple ways to do this type of stuff. So let's keep moving forward. I'm just going to go ahead and lock this so I don't accidentally select it. And let's start with the one around her head. So Bezier. This one I will use. I'm going to use a slight curve on this one. Again, if you don't get it completely clean, it's okay. You can just come back and get it with another shape. Remember that layering hierarchy? We'll just stack another one on top. All right, so there's our 3-point shape. Again, we need to source the right input. So this will be, again, background. And then let's just do our keyframing. So shift right arrow key to skip ahead and increments of 10. Again, I could set this to whatever I wanted and just make your adjustments, right?
I'm sorry, that background comes like it's like the empty background. Like
It's sourcing the background input. When you say background, when I say this shape source background, it's sourcing this input. But like I said, we're actually seeing another version of the background inside this shape. All right, it's not transparent. Right, it's a different image here inside here. Okay, so again, skip ahead and just get this lined up. And I'm just kind of moving this in. Again, you still have to do some keyframing, but it's not nearly as intricate as your roto. Like that. And I might want to come back to this one because I can get a little bit closer to that. But again, or I could just worry about it later and get it with another shape. All right. And let's scrub through it, make sure it stays. Again, it's coming off a little bit, but we'll probably need to clean that up with a clone here in a moment. Okay, that's good for now. So again, we'll go again to the clone tab of this shape. All right, so make sure the shape's selected. Go to your clone tab, and then again we do our offset. So we hold down Command, we offset where we're going to clone from. So I'm going to grab from somewhere over here in the sky, let go of Command, and then move it into position. All right, and there we go. Okay. So again, we've got that one area that we need to fix here in the rope. So it's the same process. We're just going to lock this guy, create a new shape, and again, I'll do a cusp Bezier for this. And we'll just kind of do something like this. Now you're going to overlap, and you're going to see when you overlap, you start exposing more of the wire, right? Because of this layering hierarchy. So we'll source the background again and do our keyframing. So shift right arrow key, select this guy, move it where you need it, shift right arrow key, shift right arrow key. I'm just going to move this like this. Like I said, I should probably get that with this shape, but I think we can do it okay with this. And something like that. And this can come more like this. There we go. With the rope, you're going to want to be pretty close to where you're cloning. Okay. So again, repeat the process. Sourcing the background input, but now let's grab the clone somewhere around the rope. And then we just offset and move it up. There we go. Okay. And just double check and make sure the rope doesn't look weird. Again, we have that one area on the side of her head that we need to fix. Yep. What's up?
For this specific part, like where exactly we have to put this phone on? Because I'm trying different positions, but it's showing like other places. It's not like exactly the points I'm choosing.
Oh, say that again. I'm sorry. It's hard for me to understand.
Like I'm trying to clone it, like the circle thing. I'm putting like in the exact position, like the exact part that I
The anchor, you're moving it?
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's not showing the like place I'm just actually putting on. It's showing
It's probably how you're doing it, where you're holding down command. You need to initially hold down command to move the anchor from to the area that you want to use as your clone. Then let go of command and then move it into position. All right, so it's a two-step process. Hold down command, get it to where you want to use the clone, let go of command, and then move it into position. So try doing it like that. If it's still not working, I can come take a look at it in a sec. So let me show you guys how the clone brush works. You guys have used Photoshop. Most of you guys have used Photoshop to some extent in your life, I'm sure, right?
Yeah.
And have you guys ever used the clone brush in Photoshop?
Yeah, last one.
All right, so it works the same way. You have a source and a destination, right? So it needs to know where it's cloning from and where it's cloning to, right? So if I create the clone brush, okay, so here's the clone. It's on this one here, this little guy. You'll notice, again, it looks like a paintbrush. You can hold down Shift to control the size of it. But if I hold down Command, I want you to watch what happens. I'm going to hold down Command and pull off to the right. All right, now you'll notice you've got two brushes now. All right, so the one on the left, that is your source. That's where you're going to be cloning from. The one on the right, that's your destination. That's where you're cloning to. So if I start painting, see what I'm doing? Or let's have a little bit more fun with it. Let's do this. And now I can paint his face in the sky. There we go. Right? Okay. Everyone understand how the clone works? It's pretty basic, right? You just have two areas. You hold down Command, right? You pull it out. And again, it works on a frame-by-frame basis. So when you're doing stuff like this, you want to keep your clones small. You only want to paint the areas that you need. All right? So I'm going to get somewhere very close and just go ahead and paint these areas out. Just like that. Done. Right? You would go to the next frame. Right? Again, this is the frame-by-frame stuff that you're doing, Camilo. Right? And you're just cleaning this up. What's that?
You really want to block out well.
Yeah, I mean, the better you do your shapes, the less you would have to do something like this, right? So, but it's all dependent on y'all's workflows, right? In fact, you could do the entire thing just by cloning if you wanted to this way. I wouldn't suggest it, but you could do it that way, okay? So that's how you would take care of, clean up any edges that you would need to, all right? So let's go ahead and move over here to the right side, because again, we've got these areas that we need to deal with. So I'm going to go to right around frame 44, because that's the highest. Actually, let's go. Yeah, okay, so 44, that's the highest his hand goes. So everything above his hand, let's just do it the way we did off to the left. Let's just grab a shape. Cusp Bezier in this case. And I'll do my little 3-point shape.
How do you know when to choose either cusp or regular Bezier?
Well, okay, it just cusps the points. And the reason why is I don't need handles on these points, right? But I could always create a handle. I could just hold down Z, and now it's just a regular Bezier. Or I could hold down Shift Z and just cusp it off. So it doesn't matter which one you pick, honestly, because you can always change it after the fact. And then let's go to our stroke, and let's source our background. And it looks like I did this kind of on frame 44, right? So I could kind of see it. And we'll just skip ahead 10 frames. Get this where it needs to be. This where it needs to be. This stuff isn't rocket science. It's not very difficult to do this. It just takes some time to kind of get this stuff lined up.
Do you want to, or could you, extend the shape after?
Yeah, absolutely.
And before his hand is there?
Absolutely, absolutely could. All right, or you could just use other shapes. It's up to you on how you want to approach it, but I like that you're thinking about how you're going to break it down. So yeah, at this point, I could move this down if I wanted to, right? In fact, let's just do it. Why not? So now, I'll just have to babysit this a little bit more as his thumb comes up. Ooh, just get it. Got good. Don't you love it when that happens? All right. And just move this in. So this is essentially the extent of our projects. You're going to be doing kind of the same stuff through these few projects here. Yeah, well, there's a few more things involved in the other ones, but this is basically it. Do something like this. Back.
So for this, there's no color correction on that? Just cleaning it up?
Yeah, we're just cleaning it up, right? And we're skipping a valuable step where we denoise. We're not going to denoise, but it is common to denoise when you clean plate because you can clone noise. You can see noise patterns being cloned. So typically they denoise when they do this clean plate work, and then they re-put the grain or the noise back in. We're just skipping that step for this. Okay, so let's see how we're doing here. Let's go here. So I could probably keep this down. What's that?
A red spot on his scalp.
Whoa, that's not what I meant to do. This right here? I don't know what that is. Yeah, I never watched the movie. I've only had one student say they've seen this movie before. I was like, "What'd you think?" It was alright. All right. Okay. Gallow Walker.
I mean, the name rings a bell.
I mean, yeah, I think it came out a few years ago. I don't really know much about it. We're getting really close to that edge. All right. Oh, look at that. All right, good. Okay, so now this one, same idea. We're going to go to its clone. I'm going to offset from over here. You want to get very close to the sky. There is a slight gradation to the sky, guys. It gets a little bit lighter as it goes down. It's hard to see, but there is a gradation. So you don't want to clone from like over down here, right? It's going to look different when you put it up here. So try to keep it in the same kind of vertical kind of area. Don't go down here. All right, so let's move this in and turn that off. Let's do that again. There we go. All right.
So that does bring up an interesting question though. What happens if you don't have a spot in your piece?
That's when you create the clean plate. You create a clean plate, you do something in Photoshop, right? And you're using your Photoshop clean plate and like a background input on the roto node
Okay.
or roto paint node.
Because I mean, this is a demo.
Right, and this is a very
This
easy
is
shot.
Awesome because you got the giant sky to like.
It's nice and
completely-
blue. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
easy. Yeah.
But I mean, this is literally perfect situation and completely unrelatable or unreliable. Just in a city shot, right? There's no way.
Yeah, it can get a lot more intricate. Right. Again, remember this is a fundamentals class that I'm teaching you. It's just to teach you guys the concepts. But yeah, you're thinking right, man. It gets a lot more intricate and more complex and more difficult, right? When you have shots where you don't have a nice pretty blue sky. It's like something there's a lot more detail. And you're going to get to that. Whoa. Okay. It just popped up. So yeah, you'll like I said, it can get a lot more involved. Okay, so the next step, let's go ahead and work on his fingers, right? Because we want to deal with this stuff here, and we're going to do our clones one at a time. All right, this is again the frame by frame stuff we need to deal with for this guy. So we're going to go clones, and again, you want to clone something relatively close to where you're going to be painting, and you want to make it about the size of the area you need to clone or paint over. Do something like this, and then again, it's just erasing this area here. All right. Sometimes you got to zoom out to kind of see. I zoom out, zoom back in, and just kind of fix it. All right. Areas between his fingers. It's not the easiest. Do the best you can do on it. Try to find somewhere close. We'll do something like that. I'll try to put it right in there. And that looks a little weird. So it's fine. If you do something that doesn't look right, you can either paint over it or just Apple Z it. Yeah, his fingers are tough. So I'm actually going to try to borrow from this finger and grab this area here.
Blur it out.
You could.
Why don't you borrow from a little bit higher up between those same two fingers?
Would it make any difference if you resize?
Yes. It's getting better. But yeah, you see I'm just trying to work with it. And I'm just clicking one at a time. And again, look at your stuff in motion. I know it's hard to see because I haven't done much clean plate work and see yet on this. And see how it's looking. So again, there's our fingers. Let's get all this stuff kind of cleaned up. A little dark. Someone have a question? No. Oh, I thought I saw a hand. I'm seeing things, guys.
Maybe it's just the inner lazy asshole in me, but frame by frame always sounds very unappealing.
Yeah, it's definitely a last resort. You know what I mean? You want to try to get as much work done as you can without having to do the frame by frame stuff. But when you're this close, you just have to do it frame by frame.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it seems like the blockout is good. The level of importance skyrockets in this because if you don't do a good blockout going into this, then
you're putting more work for
it's
yourself.
an exponential scale as to how much work you actually have to put in.
Yep. All right, so I gotta move on to the next one. But you guys see what I'm doing here? That's how you're gonna finish this project. All right, you're gonna use the techniques over here on the left for areas here. Remember, your shapes can have timelines. So let's say at this point I want to use a shape for this. So if I create a shape, we'll just do a Bezier, right, to get that curve that I need. So I'll do a shape like this. Pull this out here. Wrap this around some weird type of shape I'm doing here. And maybe something like this. Bring it around. Okay. So we can have, what's that?
Rotoscoping flashbacks.
You having nightmares?
Yeah.
Oh. Who said that?
Yeah.
Oh. I didn't know who said that. Anyway, it's all right. Yeah.
For example, if you want to make all the process of the degrain and regrain,
Mm-hmm.
how do you select just that part of the, like that Bezier curve? You know what I mean? Like, or each entire, like.
You mean adding the grain back in?
Yeah.
Well, at that point, you're doing two different steps because, which I'm going to show you here in a second. You're going to create your clean plates and then you're going to create your alphas for your clean plates. So you would apply the grain only where the alphas are, and then you just merge it on top of the original plate. I'm going to show you that workflow here in a second on the next one. Okay, so does everyone see how they need to do this project, how they remove the wires? You guys can do it however you want. You can use the clone brush, clone everything out. You can use all shapes if you want to use shapes with your lifetimes, turning your lifetimes on and off. However you guys need to get the work done, you can do it that way. Remember, if it looks good, it is good. So ultimately, I'm going to be grading you on how well it looks. All right, I'll look in your script and stuff, but if your shot looks good and I can't tell that you've cloned anywhere, you'll be good. So that being said, let's go ahead and just say we're done with this. So we're going to write this out. Right? Again, I want to see all your write nodes in your script and make sure you're naming your stuff correctly. So what you can do, this one is the paint demo. So this is this one here. So I'm just going to take this guy and copy it. Command C. I'm going to go in here. I'm going to save this, let's just say, to my desktop. So we go to desktop and then Command V. Right, there we go. We've already got the naming, and you just have to rename this stuff. So your student last name, this is my last name, Lewis. My first name, there's my first name, Jonathan, right, without the E. Project 7, what month is this? 1611. All right, and then paint demo. All right, so there is the naming for that. I just felt like it was just like 1606. Like, it just, these months fly by. Anyway, okay, so that one's ready to go. Again, remember, when you render this stuff out, make sure you're rendering the right frame. So in this case, this one's frames 1 to 60. So you can do render orders here, although be careful with setting up render orders and going to render all, because it doesn't always render all the frames you want, all right? If everything was the same frame range, you could do the render all, but because it's not, let's just do it separately. So again, we'll do Option P, so I can get a little postage stamp, so I know exactly what I'm rendering out here. And then, like I said, just make sure when you're rendering this stuff, you're rendering the right frames. All right?
So not that I'm trying to add more work, that's it though, right?
For the Roto Paint demo, yeah, that's all I want you guys doing. Okay, so now we're going to get into a little bit more intricate work. We're just going to add a little bit more that we need to do on this. All right, because this, even though this is a Roto Paint Node demo, this is not really a workflow that's used that much in the industry. All right, this is going to be more of a workflow that you're going to be doing in the industry. It's called a non-destructive workflow. So we're going to set up a few things here. So I'm going to do Alt-K. And we're going to set this to make sure you're on input. So this one is 25 frames. So the first thing we need to do is assess the footage. And any notes from our supervisor or director, right? What would they be saying? So first thing, this is a period piece, and then we've got these power line poles. So we've got to remove that, all right? That's common. That stuff happens, right? So this has got to go. Also, this guy, he can't decide if he wants to be in frame or out of frame, so we're just going to remove him. Right? He couldn't make up his mind, so we're making it up for him. You're not going to be in the picture. So he's got to get erased. Now, look at this shot. You guys notice something? What do you notice about this shot? And I'm not talking about the actors. I'm talking about the shot. What do you notice about it?
There's a lot of
Electricity.
bushy stuff.
There's a lot of bushy stuff. You guys notice that there's jitter?
Yeah.
You guys see the camera moving? All right, you see it now? See how it's moving? So we have to track this shot. We have to stabilize it. Before we do any clean plate work, we have to stabilize the shot. So the first part of this shot is tracking. So what I'm going to do is actually do 2 tracks and average them together to get a better track. So we're going to create a tracker. I always do that. I don't hit tab quick enough. Tracker. We're going to move this off to the left. This is how I like to do my tracking, like this. And we're going to track 2 different areas. Now this is a very simple track. So if you track these 2 areas, you'll be good. So I'll track here. And you'll go over here to the bushes. And we'll track this little Y here. Now, typically you don't want to track stuff like bushes or anything that could be moving. Right? You just have to watch it. This is stationary. I know it's not moving, so it's not going to throw off my track enough. I can track it and get a pretty good track. So if you track these 2 areas, you'll be good. All right, so what we're going to do is make sure that we have translation on both turned on. We're going to select both, and we're just going to go ahead and track forward. Okay, so tracking's done. All right. Now what I'm going to take is both these trackers. I'm going to go down here at the bottom and hit average these tracks. All right. So there is my average based off these two trackers that I just tracked. Now this is what I'm going to export as my stabilize. All right, so we're going to turn on transform, and we're going to export a transform stabilize. Go ahead and hit create. So now we've got our shot stabilized, and we can go ahead and start to work on our clean plate. All right.
How often is it actually the original shot? Like, wouldn't you start off stabilizing every single shot you've ever been given?
No, not necessarily, because what the director's like, I don't want you to, I want that jitter in there. Don't remove the jitter. So eventually we have to put this back in, right? We're just removing it for our work, right? For our clean plate work.
Yeah, it just seems like you would always start, like the project very often consists of.
Well, yeah, if you're doing clean plate type stuff, yeah, that's part of it. Yeah, you start by doing, removing any type of movement, right? Clean plate work, you're always stabilizing footage. Always, to do your clean plates. You're doing your stabilizing and your denoising, all right? So let's go ahead and start getting the roto paint and start removing this stuff. So I'm just going to use the clone. And the trick with cloning, guys, and you said you're from Photoshop, so you should have an idea of this, is resampling. So you'll paint a little bit, resample, paint a little bit, resample. See how I'm sampling from different areas? What you don't want is repeating looking patterns. Okay? So it takes a little bit of finessing. What you're doing is you're building the clouds up over those power line poles. I just made up a word, guys. Over and underneath, overneath. All right, so anyway, all right, I'm moving kind of fast, so this doesn't look the best, but hopefully you guys get the idea. What I don't want to see is a repeating looking pattern in your clouds. Make your clouds look nice and fluffy and puffy without looking all repeatable. All right, so you see I keep just holding down command. I'm resampling from other areas in the image. All right. See how I'm doing this? Now, keep in mind, your clone strokes start on a single frame. So as soon as I go to the next frame, guess what? Uh-oh. How do I fix that? How do I do it? No one said it yet. How do I fix that? Which setting? But that's after the fact. I mean, yeah, how do I change it after the fact, before I paint, or after I painted them? Come on, guys, you know this.
No,
You just give up.
It's over.
You just say, I'm not, Full Sail's not for me.
Yeah, uninstall nuke.
Yeah.
Quit school.
That's the attitude to have.
Go home. Cry.
No. All right. Make sure you get the power lines too.
John,
Yes.
the thing is like when I'm trying to clone it,
I'm still waiting for someone to give me an answer. I thought you had an answer.
You can set the light
On the road.
What? Who said it?
lifespan.
Yes, lifetime. There you go. So go to your lifetime, guys. After the fact, just shift select all these clones. That's all I was trying to get you to say. Like, if you do stuff and paint it on one frame, it's okay, because you can just shift select all these guys, go to its lifetime and select all frames, and it's fine. Now they're on all frames. All right, that's all I was trying to get. All right, what's your question?
the thing is like when I'm trying to use the clone, the clone is stuck, like it doesn't move.
Oh, make sure your viewer's loaded in the Roto Paint node. Okay. And you can create directories, right? So I could say these are clones, or I could say poll, whatever you want to call this, poll or whatever. All right, poll, and put your clones in. Right, and yeah, my clouds don't look that pretty at all. Right, but again, I'm moving kind of quick here. That's my excuse. Okay. All right, so got that area done. We're going to put these clones in there as well. All right. And I'm going to go to, I'm going to call this guy. One of those days, man. Guy. All right. So this guy over here, again, same thing. Just use your clone. You could use a shape if you want, but what I don't want to see is an obvious repeating pattern from over here. So I'm just going to use, we're going to grab something over here. I'm just going to drag it all the way around. I'm just going to start painting them out. Now you notice, again, I'm on single frame. So if you want to paint on all frames, select all, and now when you paint, it'll be on all frames. So again, resample. Don't let me see that you're repeating an area of the image, all right? Everyone get how I'm doing this? And watch out for his coat flapping in the breeze here, because it flaps around. Make sure you get it all. Right there, right? It's probably the farthest it extends out. So I'll go ahead and grab him. Just kind of do, oops, getting the edge of the frame. You don't want it to get that. Right. And just keep painting. Paint over that, so I had to break up that pattern. And we just keep doing that. This area we're going to need to get a little bit, actually. There's no yawning in CFM. Thought I heard you yawning. Yep. See how I got that? I don't like it. Just paint over it, right? Or you can undo it, but you're not, most of the time you might have to kind of paint over your strokes or your clones just to kind of get it lined up how you want it.
So, color correction.
Yeah, we'll get to that. Trying to match the lighting and stuff, yeah. Again, I'm doing this quick, so this is still repeating a little too much for me. And he's still there, so we're going to go.
It still looks, obviously it still looks pretty solid, just heck of how many times you've done this.
Okay.
It is hilarious though, just to see previous version of Photoshop, just lighting is weird.
You still see him kind of moving around. This type of stuff I see in students' projects a lot. So watch your stuff in motion. A lot of you guys, when you guys do these projects, you kind of tend to stick on one frame and you say it looks good, but watch it in motion, because this would be, this would be 20 points off here, right? Just keep that in mind when you're looking at your stuff, and like his stuff flapping in the breeze like that. You just got to fix. I'm just going to grab it from here and see if I can't. I really want to know what they're talking about next door. Yeah. So, oh man, that stupid thing. His stupid coat. Okay. I know this isn't the most exciting thing to watch people do. Okay, so let's just say we're done. All right, we've got our clean plate. Now what we need to do is create the alpha for our clean plate. All right, we don't have an alpha here. In fact, this is what we call a junk alpha. If it's just completely opaque, this doesn't do us any good. So underneath your roto paint, you create your alpha. So we'll do it with a roto node. And we're going to alpha out the areas that we worked on. So we'll do something like this. I worked on this area here. Oh, we got those, right? We got the power lines, so something like this. And I'm also going to create a slight fall off on these, holding down Command and just pulling out this edge. And maybe something like that. All right. And then for this guy over here as well, right? We're going to do a shape. This is going to be the areas that we worked on over here. And yeah, watch out for his coat again, because it'll kind of sneak up or sneak past you. And again, I'm holding down Command just to pull out these edges here. All right. Okay. Almost there. All right. So again, with the roto node, if I hit A on the keyboard, you see it's giving me that junk alpha that comes all the way from this transform is what's giving you that completely opaque alpha. In the actual roto node, you can just hit replace, and it will replace what's in the alpha with the alpha that you just created. Okay. Just hit replace. Now we're seeing the alpha that we wanted. All right. So now what do I need to do? I need to pre-mult this, right?
Why would you need a specific alpha?
I'm showing you. This is the common workflow in the industry. It's called a non-destructive workflow. Right? This is the only area you worked on. All right. So now what we do is we introduce the camera move back in. So we select our average track, we go to transform match move, and we hit create, and now we put it back in. So what you do, in fact, I'll do it kind of like this here. It looks more like this. Is you merge it on top of the original. All right. So now the only part that you've worked on the plate is right here. All right. And you just merge it on top of the original. That is a non-destructive workflow, meaning that you don't alter the original plate in any way. You just kind of work on the areas that you fixed and you just put it on top. All right. So the last thing you're going to do is what's called a QC check or quality control check. When you send your clean plate work to your supervisor, this is what they do. And this is what you're going to do in your script. You're going to take your comp, which is this, and you're going to take the original plate, which is this, and you're going to merge them together with a difference. Remember how a difference mat works, where it looks at two images and it compares the difference? Same idea. Here's your QC check. So now, when your supervisor looks at it, he knows exactly the areas that you worked on. Okay, that's all he needs to see. You worked on those two areas. All right, you're good to go. So put your QC check in at the bottom, and I want you guys to name it for me so I know where it's at. So go down here, create a backdrop, and call this QC check. All right. That is a non-destructive paint workflow. Again, that's the more common way of how we work in the industry. Okay? Good on that one? So let's go ahead and render it out. Now, you're going to render out from here. I want your finished composite. So branch off a right node from here. Don't render out your quality control. I don't need that. I want to see your finished shot. So you would render from here. So again, let's go back to FSO. This one is our paint fix. Command C, copy. And we'd also, let's just say we save this to the desktop. So we go here, Command V, and go ahead and name it. Paint fix, what month is this? 1611, right? All right, and we're good to go. Again, make sure you're rendering the right frames, 1 to 25, right? As long as you have your viewer set to input, it should give you the right frames to render, but just double check. All right, so everyone good on that one?
No.
No? What's
I didn't
up?
understand why did you make the transform, like from the tracking, you made another.
Right, because we put the tracking back in. What we did was I stabilized the footage, so I locked it from moving, from jittering, so I could do my clean plate work. If I were to try to paint with the jitter in, you would still see the jitter, but my paint wouldn't be jittering, so you would notice it. So that's why we stabilized it. So I could do the paint, then I just isolated the areas that I did the paint on, and then I just put that jitter back into it, and then merged it over the original plate. All right? And then you do your quality control at the bottom.
The roto node and the roto paint node, is the roto paint node just better?
It just has additional features in it. So I don't know if you would say it's better.
Well, is there any reason to use a roto node?
If all you need to do is draw a Bezier shape, you could just use a roto. But yeah, you could technically just use a roto paint. It's just dependent, like it's not like one's better than the other. It's just the roto paint node has additional tools in it you can use. But if you don't need to use them, then it's kind of overkill to create it, right? If you're not even using it. If it's like what takes up more or less RAM, I don't know. They're similar in that sense. So okay, so the last one I need to show you guys, all right, is the dust busting. Okay. So this one's only 11 frames long, and what we're looking at is this. This is dust. When a film negative gets scanned into the computer, sometimes there's dust or hairs on the negative. And then when it gets scanned in, it looks like these little cornflakes. Okay? So this happens quite a lot. And there's entire departments that all they do is clean up all the digitized film that's been captured or scanned in. Again, this is not very glamorous work. This isn't very glorious work. People don't even know that this work happens, right? But there are jobs that this is what you do. So we have a couple issues with this shot that we need to deal with. We're going to first do our dust busting, which is we got to remove the cornflake on his lip here. And we've got a little hair. Hair looks like this. All right? There's a hair on the negative. It kind of reflected back this blue light. We got to fix this here. Okay? Now, that being said, there's more things we need to do with this shot. All right? We need to repair the set. You see these areas here where it's breaking apart and it's exposing its cheapness? We need to fix all this stuff. All right? So if you go here, I have circled all the areas you need to repair. It's not as bad as you think. Okay? Oh, I got to work at a university. Anyway, all right, so these are the areas we need to fix. All right, so let's start with his lip. That's the most obvious. And we're going to use a very particular node for this called the dust bust node. All right, in this case, we are going to use this specific node. We're going to create what's called a dust bust. And the way a dust bust works is it's on a per frame basis. So it only works on one frame, right? It's specifically geared for this type of work because most of this stuff only happens on a frame. So watch how this works, how the dust bus works. I'm going to go ahead and hold down Option Command and click. And I'm going to create this little square here. And you can adjust the size of this square. So I'm going to make it relatively big, something like this, to kind of make sure I cover this area. Now, what we're seeing inside this square is actually a frame after the frame we're on. So we're on frame 9. We're looking inside this square at frame 10. Okay? So it's a combination of a time offset and then you have a translation. So if I hold down Command and pull this little wire out, now I'm kind of moving that frame 10 around to kind of line it up to get the shading on his lip. Oh, and I'm getting close right around there. Right? And let me adjust the hardness just a little bit. There we go. Okay? And I'm just kind of backing off. So this is a combination of a rotation and a translation, this little wire here, this little line here. So you just kind of rotate it and line it up into a position. I need to get closer to his lip. There we go. Now I'm getting his lip and getting the shading on his lip right there. Okay? And you see I'll do like a quick scrub to make sure I'm getting rid of that dust bust. That dust. Okay? So that's how the dust bust node works. Now, yes, you could do this with just a roto paint node. You could clone that area. You could time offset that clone. Same type of thing. All right? But people still use this node quite a lot. So I want to show you guys that you can use this node. Now, that being said, this node can get a little weird. All right? So let's say I go to a frame here and it doesn't matter. Let's say I want to clone something off his forehead here. So I make my little clone or my little dust bust square. If you do something like this, where you grab the line, but it doesn't extend past your box, yeah, you can't grab this line. That's why it's a little finicky. So be careful with this. If you do something like this, what you have to do is you have to do this, and now I can grab the line. See, it has to be outside the square before you can grab it. Okay, so just keep that in mind when you're doing your dust busts. All right? Okay, so that one's done, right? Very quickly done. And again, if you guys just want to do it with the roto paint node, I'm not going to count off. You don't have to use this node, but I just want to show you that you could use it if you wanted. All right, so there's our blue hair. So again, Option Command, create another dust bust. Let's get the area that we need to replace. And let's kind of replace it and move this around.
Like, does it track?
No, because it's only on one frame. So you don't need to track, right? Yeah, it defaults to one frame, the dust bust. So if you needed stuff for multiple frames, you would need to use like a roto paint node. All right, so we got our dust busting done. All right, So let's go ahead and work on this. We need to get rid of this green spill, right? Yeah, what's up?
You just create one node and then you do 2 points, right?
Yeah, it did it. Yeah, but it's only on a per frame. But yeah, I created both those guys on frame 7 and frame, I think, 9 or whatever the other one was on. Yeah, with just the one dust bus node. Right.
You need to go back to one of the other.
After the fact, yeah, you can still keep manipulating them if you need to. Like you could keep, I could keep going back to this and moving it around. I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
For you to manipulate, you just have to go back to the frame and so on.
Right, to move it, right. Yeah, see how, yeah, because it's only on one frame. It disappears when it's not on the frame that you created.
It's on the right, anyway.
Right.
And that's what I was wondering if you could select on the right side.
No. Look, you got edge hardness. You have enable, which is on and off. That's 1, 0, on, off. You've got frame offset. You can designate what frame that you're looking at. And then you've got your edge hardness. And that's about it. All right. Okay, so here we're going to do our color spill correction. So I'm going to actually create a roto node. And we'll do a Bezier. And I'll do something like this. And kind of come around like this. And this, because it's such a fast movement, you're just going to key this on every frame. We're going to go around here. So I'm just keying. You can scale from the center, Option, Shift, and scale up. See how I scale from the center when I hold down Option and Shift? And just kind of place it. Next frame. Next frame. Next frame. Just moving it in. This is just the mask for our hue correct. So it doesn't have to be perfect. You just want to make sure you're keeping this inside the shape.
What is that?
It's like a little latch that's on the side of the carriage. It's supposed to be gold, but because there was a green screen right off frame, it's reflecting that green. Okay, so we got our keyframing. We're going to do a hue correct. And it's going to be tough to remove this completely and get it to gold, but we'll do the best we can. So we're going to make sure your mask is plugged in. We're going to go to the green sup or the G sup. Let's go ahead and yank that down. And we'll go to here. We'll just adjust the slope here. And basically with this guy, what you want to do is compensate with your luma. So you see how it's getting really dark? So while I have the G sup selected, I'm going to hold down Command and select the luma so I can see both at the same time. And do the opposite with the luma. So kind of make your slope the inverse of how you did your green suppression. All right, and that'll get the brightness back up in those pixels that you need. And I might have gone a little too far with this. There we go, something like that. So now it's looking more of a gold color. Like I said, it's hard to completely remove it, but if we go to the before, I mean, obviously you can see just how much we're kind of getting rid of that green. All right, so make sure you get that taken care of off to the left. All right, again, I could keep tweaking this. It still needs a little bit more finessing, but.
Is there anything that we can try to color match in that scene?
It would be something kind of more around this value here. See this type of orangey value here?
Just darker.
Right, yeah, just a little darker. Brighter. Okay.
All the dents and nicks and stuff, is that just
Yes.
clothing?
Yep, same type of idea. So again, that'll be the last thing I show you guys. So we'll create a roto paint. All right. And we'll do something simple here. So this guy here, again, you're going to have to animate this because look how jerky it is. You could use tracking data and apply the tracking data to your roto shapes. That's something I've not shown you guys though. So let's just hand key it. If you guys want to learn how you can apply tracking data to your roto, I can show you. But we're just going to keep it simple here. I'm just going to create my, overlays on, create a simple shape, cover this area. We're going to source that background, right? And then again, I'm just going to keyframe this, making sure it stays where it needs to stay. And you got to do it on every frame with this guy since there's so much movement. So you can see you can do this relatively quickly. Just get your keyframes done. What's that? It's only 11 frames, yeah, so it's not a big deal. Okay, so let's just do our offset, right? So you could do the clone and offset somewhere maybe over here. I'm going to get relatively close because you do have to kind of pay attention to this. And it is a hierarchy, so if you're cloning, make sure you're not cloning from somewhere where it's damaged. All right. And you can see the edge on these, so what you need to do with these is adjust your feather. There we go, to kind of hide it. Okay, so you're going to do that same process, what I just showed you here, to clean up all these little smudges, all these little nicks, and this one here especially. So this one is the most obvious, so just borrow from somewhere up here. The good thing is that you have this dark line that can kind of keep you lined up. So you're just going to grab this dark line and just kind of follow this path here, all right? And then these little smudges, all these little nicks up here. This here, again, follow that dark line to just kind of get rid of that nick here. These little nicks up here at the top, okay? That's everything you need to do for this shot. That is the dust bust. So we're just going to pretend we're done. We're going to create our right node. And again, this is the dust bust, so we're going to go here, find our dust bust. Command C, go into your render, desktop, Command V. Lewis, Joe Nathan, and 1611. Or 1611, yes. There we go. So now we've got all those done. All right. So the last one that you guys will need to do, which that's the podcast that Pedro does, is the rig removal and paint fix. All right. This one's a little bit more involved because, like I said, you're going to see a boom mic come in the frame. There's that boom mic, right? That happens a lot, right? Because boom operators, you're standing there for 8 hours like this. It starts to get heavy, you know. So that does happen, right? In the old days, you'd get fired for like wasting a take like that. Nowadays, they're like, oh, we'll just remove it in post. Who cares? All right. And again, this guy, he just can't decide what he's doing, so we got to get rid of him. All right. So you're going to remove this guy, and there is going to be a little bit of roto because guess what? He's in front of this guy here, right? So you're going to need to roto his arm here. Yes, you have to. You're gonna put these bushes back on top of him. So you need to remove him behind the bushes. So again, it's a technique, and Pedro will go through it on how to do it. Now, keep in mind, guys, if you've noticed, everything that we've shown you or that you guys are working on, the cameras are essentially locked. Yes, there's a little bit of jitter, but the cameras aren't moving. All right, that simplifies this type of work quite a bit. Once you start introducing camera movements and you start having parallax in your shots, your clean plating gets far more sophisticated, all right? Now you're introducing 3D tracking, you're doing scene reconstruction where you're building the set in 3D space, you're projecting your textures on to do your clean plate work, all right? So this type of work can get far more advanced. We don't get that advanced in this class. This is just to give you a taste of what you can do with it. But keep in mind, like I said earlier, most shots you see nowadays, the cameras are moving quite considerably. So it gets a little bit more advanced. You'll do more advanced stuff when you get into the next class. You've actually kind of seen it. If you guys have been sitting outside, you've seen what Juan's been doing. You'll do a little bit more advanced type of clean plate work and projections. All right? So does everyone know what they need to do? Yes. Okay, good. Let me go ahead and stop this.